All right, guys, chapter 2. You can see about halfway between West Egg and New York, the motor road hastily joins the railroad and runs beside it for a quarter of a mile, so as to shrink away from a certain desolate area of land. This was the Valley of Ashes. Now, this, remember, is another one of our symbols. And thinking about ashes, thinking about some of the symbols that we've learned about, I want you to be thinking about the fact that this is definitely symbolic of a lack of growth, right? You've got dust everywhere. It's gray and it's sad and, and it's just not a place of growth. It's more of a place of death, and maybe not literal death, which maybe, but of just the death of dreams, maybe. And that becomes really important. So you can see that over here, death, gray, loss of progress. And we also have another one of our big symbols, the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg. And we find out here that it's a billboard of an optometrist, which is an eye doctor, right? And he's selling eyeglasses. So you see his big eyes looking out over the Valley of Ashes. And there's that symbol, though, that he can see. He's clear. He's focused. They looked out, these blue, gigantic eyes, right? And they're going to see the things that happen in this book. Okay, so this is really important because there's always a halt, at least 3 minutes, because that's when I first met Tom Buchanan's mistress. So he didn't really want to, but he was taken by Tom, and Tom said, "We're getting off. I want you to meet my girl." And they went to meet his girl. Now, this is really interesting. As we get into the Valley of Ashes, there are only building in the site was a small block of yellow bricks standing on the edge of the wasteland, sort of compact Main Street. Ministering to it and contiguous to absolutely nothing. One of the three, and you can see I've numbered these, was for rent, and another was an all-night restaurant, and the third was a garage, repairs, George B. Wilson. Cars bought and sold, and I followed Tom inside the garage. And it's unprosperous, it's bare, there's a shadow of a garage, and we've got this blonde, spiritless man, anemic and faintly handsome, right? So he has been taken over almost by this Valley of Ashes in the shadow of the garage. He is not, he's a shadow of a man. And so Tom comes in and he's talking with him, wants to sell him this car, but he's really just there to see Myrtle. And we now meet Myrtle, right? So Tom glanced impatiently around. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs, and in a moment, the thickish figure of a woman blocked out the light from the office door. Now, that's very important. She blocked out the light. She is taking away her husband's life and zest and things. She was in the middle 30s and faintly stout, but she carried her surplus flesh sensuously, as some women can. Now, that's important. Her face above a spotted dress of dark blue crepe de chine contained no facet of gleam of beauty, but there was an immediately perceptible vitality about her, as if the nerves of her body were continually smoldering. So she's just got this life just almost in every cell of her body, just moving, and Tom is very obviously taken by that. So then he says, I want to see you, and then this tells you what Tom thinks about Wilson. He thinks he's so dumb he doesn't even know he's alive. So as they get there, they get this dog, whatever. She wants a dog. She wants all these other things. It's important to note that Myrtle is a much lower class than Tom, but she believes that by being with Tom, she is in the class she deserves to be in. And we find out later in this chapter that she does not believe that she is the same class as George. Okay. And this is interesting. We've got this dog, of indeterminate breed, right? Right here. And that's kind of interesting because I would almost say that's Myrtle, right? Indeterminate breed. Okay. Then they move on. He pays way too much for that dog. The guy says the dog is a boy. Turns out the dog is a girl. And they go on to the apartment. Now, this is kind of an awkward moment, and I forgot to give you a heads up, but we have some adult nap time happening here. So, and Nick is in an awkward situation. So he goes out, to get Cigarettes. Let's see, when does that happen? Oh, okay. So this is really important. He talks about how he has been drunk only twice in his life. Now, the movie, if you've seen the movie, it makes it seem like he gets drunk all the time, roaring, raging drunk. But that's not true. So he's been drunk only twice in his life, and the second time was that afternoon. Now, that's really important because remember, Nick is our narrator, and he's already put himself up to be as a pretty reliable narrator. But if he was roaring drunk during this, it's going to be very hazy, and he says that here, a dim, hazy cast over it. Some of what he's saying and remembering, we have to take it that way, right? That it's going to feel weird, it's going to feel hazy because he's drunk and he's our narrator. So he goes out to get cigarettes. When he comes back, they disappeared, so he sat discreetly in the living room and read a chapter. And just as Tom and Myrtle, after the first drink, Mrs. Wilson and I called each other by our first names, reappeared, company commenced to arrive at the apartment door. So they have this little party. She's called her sister Catherine in to kind of come and be Nick's little woman. And then we have the McKees. They come in, and it's all a jumbled mess, and it feels so awkward. But we've got Myrtle, right? She's throwing this party, and she's got this vitality, and it converts into impressive hauteur. She just feels like she is so important, and she takes up this space with her life. But she's also trying really hard, right? Oh, this old thing, I just slip it on sometimes when I don't care what I look like. But that's not true at all. She 100% cares. But we just have this whole thing that is just so jumbled. We've got Tom ordering Myrtle around. We've got, we find out that they think that Myrtle can't marry Tom because Tom can't divorce Daisy because Daisy's a Catholic. Well, it turns out she's not actually a Catholic. That's just a lie Tom's telling Myrtle because, let's be honest, most upstanding people, even if they are cheating on their wives, don't leave their wives. So anyway, so they've got this little thing going on here, and Tom makes jokes at Myrtle's expense over here, talking about, the fact that she's got all of this clout. Oh yeah, here we go. Daisy was not a Catholic. Even Nick and Catherine aren't equals, right? Because we've got Catherine trying to talk herself up, but yeah, he has so much more experience because of his prosperity. And then Myrtle, again, is talking about how much she doesn't like George, right? I thought he knew something about breeding, but he wasn't fit to lick my shoe, which I think really suggests that she thinks really highly of herself and above her station. But again, it's just this craziness in this chapter, and that's meaningful. It's meant to show this frivolity, and it's meant to show just that drinking and the, really not sure what's going on. But then we have this moment where Myrtle decides to, well, first, we've got everything going on that's just a blur. It's all a blur. Class is showing. But then, right, she says, Daisy, Daisy, Daisy. I'll say whatever I want to. This is really important here, guys. Making a short, deft movement, Tom Buchanan broke her nose with his open hand. There were bloody towels. It's all just crazy. But the fact that he would just slap her like that, right? Okay, then he says, come to lunch sometime. He finds himself talking to Mr. McKee, and I was standing beside his bed, and he was sitting up between the sheets, clad in his underwear, with a great portfolio in his hand. He's just showing him, it's all very confused, and he's showing him different things. Then I was lying half asleep on the cold lower level of the Pennsylvania station, staring at the morning Tribune and waiting for the 4:00 train because of all the drinking. Okay, guys, that is chapter 2. I will pick back up with chapter 3 in another video.